Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's topic, I want you to pause for a second and really think about this. Have you ever been in a situation where telling the truth felt wrong? Where being honest seemed like it might cause more harm than good? If you're nodding your head right now, then stick around, because we're about to explore a controversial idea that might just change the way you think about honesty. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, aren't we always supposed to tell the truth? Isn't honesty the best policy? Well, that's exactly what we're going to challenge today. And trust me, you don't want to skip this video, because by the end, you'll have a nuanced understanding of honesty that could help you navigate some of life's trickiest situations. We'll be diving deep into this topic, exploring real-life scenarios, and even looking at what ancient philosophers had to say about it. So grab a snack, get comfortable, and let's get into it. All right, let's start with a bold statement. Honesty isn't always the best policy. I know, it sounds almost sacrilegious, right? We've been taught from childhood that lying is wrong and that we should always tell the truth. But life, as we all know, is rarely that black and white. Before we go further, let me clarify something. I'm not advocating for dishonesty or saying that lying is good. Far from it. What I'm proposing is that there are situations where strict adherence to truth-telling might not be the most ethical or beneficial course of action. Let's consider a scenario. Imagine you have a friend who's been working on a painting for months. They're incredibly proud of it and ask for your opinion. The thing is, you think it's terrible. What do? Do you tell them the brutal truth and potentially crush their spirit? Or do you find a way to be supportive without being entirely truthful? This is where the concept of white lies comes in. These are small, seemingly harmless untruths told to avoid hurting someone's feelings or to maintain social harmony. But are they really harmless? And more importantly, are they sometimes necessary? To help us navigate this moral maze, let's turn to the wisdom of Stoicism, an ancient Greek school of philosophy that emphasizes ethics, logic, and the natural world. The Stoics, interestingly, had a lot to say about truth and honesty, but their views might surprise you. They didn't advocate for blind truth-telling in all situations. Instead, they emphasized the importance of wisdom in applying ethical principles. Take, for example, this quote from Epictetus, a prominent Stoic philosopher. "It is not the things themselves that disturb men, but their judgments about these things." What Epictetus is suggesting here is that our perception of truth and honesty and the consequences of our actions are often more impactful than the objective reality. In other words, the effects of our honesty or dishonesty matter more than the act itself. Another Stoic, Seneca, wrote, "It is not for the sake of a city or a few people that one should live honorably, but for the sake of all men and women, including those who are not yet born." This quote reminds us to consider the broader implications of our actions. Sometimes a small untruth might lead to a greater good for more people. It's not about what feels good in the moment, but what serves the greater purpose. Now let's delve deeper into some specific scenarios where absolute honesty might not be the best approach. Scenario 1. Protecting someone's safety. Imagine you're hiding a friend who's fleeing from an abusive relationship. Their ex shows up at your door asking if you've seen them. In this case, lying to protect your friend's safety is not only justifiable but arguably the right thing to do. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are." In this scenario, looking at things for what they are means recognizing the potential danger and acting to prevent harm, even if it means being dishonest. Scenario 2. Maintaining confidentiality. In many professions like healthcare, law, or counseling, maintaining client confidentiality is paramount. If someone asks you about information you're ethically bound to keep secret, being honest could mean betraying a trust and potentially causing harm. Scenario 3. Avoiding unnecessary hurt. Remember our earlier example about the friend's painting? This falls under the category of avoiding unnecessary hurt. The Stoic philosopher Heracles said, "If you make a habit of taking pleasure in doing good to others, you will find no cause to complain about how others treat you." Sometimes, finding a kind way to express your thoughts without being brutally honest can be a form of doing good to others. Scenario 4. National security. There are situations where governments and military organizations need to keep certain information secret for the greater good of national security. While transparency is generally desirable in governance, there are times when complete honesty could jeopardize public safety. Scenario 5. Surprise parties or gifts. On a lighter note, sometimes we keep secrets or even lie to maintain the element of surprise for a celebration or a gift. In these cases, the temporary dishonesty leads to a positive outcome and greater joy for others. Now I can almost hear some of you saying, "But isn't this just making excuses for lying?" And that's a valid concern. The line between justifiable dishonesty and harmful lies can be thin and blurry. So how do we navigate this ethical minefield? This is where we can again turn to Stoic wisdom for guidance. The Stoics emphasize the importance of virtue and living according to reason. They believed that true happiness comes from living a life of virtue, which includes wisdom, justice, courage, and self-control. Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." At first glance, this might seem to contradict what we've been discussing. But look closer. Marcus Aurelius doesn't say always tell the truth. He says, don't say what is not true. There's a subtle but important difference here. Sometimes, remaining silent or finding a way to communicate without lying might be the best course of action. The key is to approach each situation with wisdom and carefully consider the consequences of our actions. The Stoics advocated for this kind of thoughtful approach to ethics. They didn't believe in rigid rules, but in using reason to determine the best course of action in any given situation. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This quote encourages us to act in accordance with our values and the kind of person we want to be. If we value kindness and doing good for others, sometimes that might mean withholding a harsh truth or even telling a white lie. But here's the crucial point. The decision to be less than fully honest should never be taken lightly. It should be a carefully considered choice, made with full awareness of the potential consequences and with the intention of achieving a greater good. Let's look at some practical strategies for navigating situations where complete honesty might not be the best policy. Scenario 1. Consider the consequences. Before speaking, think about the potential impact of your words. Will telling the truth cause unnecessary harm? Is there a way to be truthful without being hurtful? Scenario 2. Look for alternatives. Sometimes, you can avoid both lying and telling a hurtful truth by redirecting the conversation or finding a diplomatic way to express your thoughts. Scenario 3. Use I statements. Instead of making objective statements, frame your responses as personal opinions. For example, instead of saying your painting is bad, you could say, I think you've made progress with your use of color. Scenario 4. Silence is an option. Remember, you're not always obligated to give an opinion or answer a question. Sometimes staying silent is the most ethical choice. Scenario 5. Focus on the positive. When asked for an opinion on something you don't like, try focusing on the aspects you do appreciate. This isn't lying, it's choosing to emphasize the positive. Scenario 6. Consider the intention behind the question. Often, when people ask for honesty, they're looking for something else: reassurance, support, or validation. Try to address the underlying need rather than just answering the surface-level question. Scenario 7. Be honest about your hesitation. If you're in a situation where you feel uncomfortable being fully honest, you can say something like, I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask about this, or I don't feel comfortable answering that question. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. If we start making exceptions to honesty, aren't we on a slippery slope? Couldn't this lead to a world where nobody tells the truth and we can't trust anyone? This is a valid concern, and it's why we need to approach this topic with extreme caution and nuance. The goal isn't to abandon honesty, but to recognize that ethical behavior sometimes requires a more complex approach than simply always telling the truth. The Stoic philosopher Seneca offers some wisdom here. We should live with sincerity and integrity, but also without being obnoxious in our honesty or truthfulness. This quote beautifully captures the balance we're striving for. We should aim for sincerity and integrity in our interactions, but not at the cost of being insensitive or causing unnecessary harm. It's also worth noting that even when we choose not to be fully honest, we should strive to be as truthful as possible. This might mean omitting certain details rather than fabricating falsehoods or finding ways to express ourselves that are technically true but don't reveal the whole story. Let's take a moment to consider the potential downsides of always being brutally honest. Number 1. Damaged relationships. Constant brutal honesty can strain or even destroy relationships. Sometimes a little tact goes a long way in maintaining healthy connections with others. Number 2. Decreased trust. Paradoxically, always being brutally honest can make people trust you less. If people know you'll always say exactly what you think without any filter, they might be less likely to confide in you or seek your opinion. Number 3. Missed opportunities. In professional settings, brutal honesty can sometimes close doors. There's a reason why workplace communications often involve a degree of diplomacy. Number 4. Emotional harm. While the truth is important, delivery matters. Brutal honesty without consideration for others' feelings can cause significant emotional distress. Number 5. Social isolation. People who pride themselves on always being brutally honest often find themselves socially isolated. Most people prefer interactions that involve some degree of tact and consideration. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not advocating for a world of lies and deception. Honesty should still be our default mode of operation. The truth is crucial for building trust, maintaining healthy relationships, and creating a just society. What I'm suggesting is a more nuanced approach to truth-telling, one that takes into account the complexities of human interaction and the potential consequences of our words. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters." In the context of our discussion, we could adapt this to say, it's not just what you say, but how and why you say it that matters. The key is to approach each situation with wisdom, empathy, and a genuine desire to do what's best. Sometimes that might mean telling the whole truth. Other times it might mean finding a gentler way to express ourselves or even keeping silent. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought experiment. Imagine a world where everyone always told the brutal, unfiltered truth in every situation. Now imagine a world where people approached truth-telling with empathy, wisdom, and consideration for others. Which world would you rather live in? The reality is, we don't live in a black and white world. Ethics and human interactions are complex, nuanced, and often messy. By recognizing this complexity and approaching our interactions with wisdom and empathy, we can navigate these ethical dilemmas more effectively. So, what's the takeaway from all this? Is honesty the best policy? Well, like many things in life, the answer is, it depends. Honesty is crucial, but it needs to be tempered with wisdom, empathy, and a consideration of consequences. Here are some final thoughts to consider. Number 1, strive for honesty as your default mode of operation. Number 2, when faced with a situation where honesty might cause harm, pause and consider the potential consequences. Number 3, look for ways to be truthful without being hurtful. Number 4, remember that sometimes silence or redirection can be better than either lying or telling a harmful truth. Number 5, always act with good intentions and a desire to do what's best for all involved. Number 6, regularly reflect on your actions and their consequences to refine your ethical decision-making. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This reminds us that while we can't control every situation we encounter, we have the power to choose how we respond. We can choose to approach each interaction with wisdom, empathy, and a genuine desire to do good. I hope this video has given you some food for thought and perhaps a new perspective on the age-old adage that honesty is always the best policy. Remember, the goal isn't to be less honest, but to be more wise and empathetic in how we express our truths. What do you think? Have you ever been in a situation where being less than fully honest seemed like the right thing to do? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video thought-provoking, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more content that challenges conventional wisdom and explores the complexities of ethics and human behavior. Until next time, keep thinking critically and compassionately. Thanks for watching.